let me actually just, because I read it, didn't I? I at least read it. So you know I'm not making it up. I will share the document very briefly, just in the interests of transparency. So, share screen. Yeah. Now can you see it? Yes, it says announcement August 10th, 2022. I apologize for not sharing the document. And thank you, John, and others for alerting me. So there's the announcement, just to prove to you that I wasn't making it up, that indeed you will be kicked off a hospital liaison committee as a hospital liaison committee member if you are not vaccinated and have no plans to get vaccinated. So there you go. Thank you very much again for bringing it to my attention that wasn't showing. And we have our first viewer invasion. Welcome to Crossroads Circle. Crossroads Circle, welcome back to the channel. How are you?
Pretty good. Long time no see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's been a minute.
Yeah. Little apostate baby's running around at like a year old now. She's like wreaking havoc around the house.
Don't they always? Yeah. At least you're not like Stephen Lett saying, how dare they be playing?
Oh, yeah. These children.
Play, and more play.
Mine. Yeah, he is the worst example of what you would want as a religious leader. Like, dude's almost identical to Marshall Applewhite. I have a theory that they must be related, or like they got to be twin flames or something like that.
Hey, I'm not arguing with you. Yeah, that's perfectly conceivable to me. Yeah,
for sure. So, I mean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what did you think of the announcement letters that we've gone through?
I like the concept that they're trying to crack down on the COVID thing, and trying to get people vaccinated, but there's such a hypocrisy to that, because they're literally like the hospital liaison committee, like they're the ones who are in charge of denying medical science, So
yeah, it's very selective respect for medical science, isn't it?
Exactly. And like, for me, it's just like the whole logic behind why they do that is based off of a verse that's talking about how you're supposed to sacrifice animals. So it's like, in Leviticus, when they're talking about that, they're talking about putting blood on an altar. So like, in theory, they're saying that these people who are dying are human sacrifices. Yeah. When you really think about it. And I was talking to my uncle about it before, because he's an elder and his wife is sick, and I don't know the exact details of it, but I was talking about blood transfusion. I'm like, what do you think about that, uncle? And he's like, well, it's not clean and da 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 da. And I'm like, well, what verse are you looking at? And then they're looking at a verse where they're talking about how when you sacrifice an animal, like when the ancient Jews sacrifice animals, or like most ancient religions or old religions, they sacrifice the animal, you put the blood on the altar for the gods. You know what I mean? So that's it has nothing to do with humans. It has to do with animal sacrifice. And I was like, so if you guys are really so adamant that this is what you're supposed to do, then why don't you guys eat halal meat? Why don't you eat kosher meat? Because they practice everything that it says in the Bible, they practice that when they butcher halal and kosher meat, which is one of the main reasons why
which is done in a very inhumane way. Yeah.
I mean, it's, it's not, it's more humane than what they do in most Western like farms. You know what I mean? Like,
define humane. I mean, all abattoirs are inhumane, arguably.
Well, yeah, I mean, eating, but like in America, like our chicken farms, like, have you ever seen footage of them? They're like, they're running around in their own filth, and like they run them over with tractors and stuff. They just, they kill them in CO2 chambers. And I mean, I think the compassion of saying like, oh, I'm going to give it water and say a prayer and isolate it from other animals before I kill it is a little better than mass murdering animals in factory farms. But despite that, you know what I mean? Like the whole idea that the whole idea that it's because they don't want to eat meat with blood in it, when they're most Jehovah's Witnesses are eating conventionally farmed food, that the blood is not drained out when they farm it. It's in a factory farm, especially Americans. You know, Jehovah's Witnesses eat McDonald's. They don't drain the blood in the cows in McDonald's like they do with with halal meat, for instance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I was a teenager and I deconverted, I became a Muslim essentially because I was like, I want to be the best Christian I can. And I seen that they were practicing things like in Leviticus, like not eating pork. I know it's funny, like I'm not a Muslim anymore, but they were practicing these things that Jehovah's Witnesses would just gloss over. You know, I realized it was the same thing, so I left. But still, it's like,
hey, I'm not judging. I just, it is. I would never laugh at it, but it's just interesting. I think sometimes when you're conditioned to be reliant on dogma, it kind of makes sense that you would just go from one set of dogma to another. But just going back to what you were saying, because we are deviating a little bit, and there's someone else, it seems, that wants to come on. When you were talking about the altar, I was reading the comments recently on the channel, and someone made the point that the altar had horns. So you weren't just supposed to pour blood onto the altar, you were supposed to put it on the horns of the altar. And the reason the altar had horns was as a nod to El having horns. Because as I pointed out in a recent rebuttal, and I've been reading about in this amazing book, God and Anatomy, the patriarchs are actually described in the Bible as worshipping El, and there've been statues found of El that have horns. So the reason, apparently, and I haven't double checked this to be fair, but I thought it was a really interesting comment about the link between the altar having horns and El having horns. So
there's a link between ancient Hebrew religion and the tradition, the religions around that region. You know what I mean? And in ancient pagan civilizations, and I come from a long line of like pagan individuals. Like they're horned gods. And in Europe, I forget the name of the guy, but he has the antlers and stuff. And in West Africa, we got Legba. I mean, the etymology is similar, right? With an L. And he has horns, but in Haitian voodoo, they gave him a top hat. And in Louisiana voodoo, they gave him a top hat to cover the horns because, Christians were killing us in the United States for practicing our religion, And even when you go to Buddhist temples, like a Thai Buddhist temple, because on my channel, like I go into like random Buddhist temples and stuff like that, and I like communicate with people about like older religions. But some of their altars, they will have on the right side, and often the right side, it resembles masculinity. They'll have a bull, like they'll have a bull head, and on the left side, they'll have something more feminine. You know what I mean? It varies depending on the temple and the branch of Buddhism. But even in Buddhism, and it's particularly those branches of Buddhism that take from the indigenous religions of those whichever region in China or Vietnam or Laos that they're in, or Cambodia. So it's like, it's an old thing, like the ram or like the fucking golden calf. Horns have always been the symbol of like Father God. Okay. So it doesn't surprise me.
Indeed. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming back on the Viewer Invasion, and I hope I get to see you on another Viewer Invasion soon.
For sure. Look forward to it.
Take care, dude. Drive safe as well.
Yeah, I pulled over, okay?
Okay.
Don't tell anybody. And then initially I was driving, right?
Okay, thank you for taking time out of your journey.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. So that was Crossroads Circle. And yeah, brilliant. Really nice to catch up with Crossroads Circle. And we